Well, good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes on the Daybreak program. And it's time for us to focus on Shelton, brought to you by our great friends at Our Community Credit Union. We have Cappy Shapiro, the Homeless Outreach Coordinator. And we're going to talk about all things that Cappy has been up to with information regarding homeless outreach in Shelton. First, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm happy to see you.
It's nice to have you on here with us this morning. And this has been a topic of conversation for many, many years in the city of Shelton. And over the last few months since February, you have been the Homeless Outreach Coordinator. And jumping into a position that was brand new had to have been a little daunting as you looked at the landscape, and especially with all the conversations all across the South Sound about the homeless population and how best the cities can do to help them out. When you first looked at the position or applied for the position, tell me what you thought what you thought you could bring to the city, and what great work you think you could have helped to accomplish.
Yeah, well, I've always been an on-the-ground social worker, and so I was recently working with Telecare, and I had been working in Mason County for almost 3 years doing, I was doing crisis work, and so I was going out into the community on crisis calls, doing crisis interventions. And I was also doing case management with people. And so I had a sense of, I think when people have been doing work on the ground a long time, they tend to see, you see different faces and different stories, and you see the same barriers over and over again.
One of the things you brought up Telecare and the evaluation and treatment that's going on pretty much across the street from us, the old PUD 3 building on Coda. There's been a lot of great work over the last couple of months to integrate some of the city services and to have the evaluations down there. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so there's the ENT that's across from you guys, and there's 2 different units in there. So the first unit is the bottom floor, and that's open. It opened a couple of months ago, and I think it's 12 beds. So they have the ability to treat people for psychiatric issues and get them stabilized. And the second floor that they're opening is for longer term care. And so I gotta tell you, having done crisis work in the community, I know what a valuable asset it is to our community to have that right there, because intervening in a psychiatric situation where someone's totally overwhelmed and their family is overwhelmed, if you're able to treat someone and get them stabilized, that can prevent, crises escalating, domestic violence situations and things like that. So we have now 24 hospital beds that we're going to be operating, and that's going to be really impactful for our community.
I know there's a lot of privacy and HIPAA and things like this, but can you share with me some of the misconceptions that the public may not quite understand about the folks that come in to that facility and other folks throughout the homeless population that you deal with? Just any of the kind of the broader misconceptions that since you're on the front lines, you see that that may be not what folks think is actually how it is.
Well, you tell me, what are the misconceptions?
You would think some of them that there are folks that come in that they are maybe beyond help, or it's better just to lock them up, or there's no help available in Shelton, or folks are maybe not out to help themselves? Over the years, I've heard all of the reasons for folks and help on this.
Yeah, I mean, people face stigma on top of everything else that they face. And yeah, I think that there is maybe some lack of empathy. I mean, I work with the family members too, and the people who are maybe having a mental health crisis with their families. And it's really, I mean, it's a hard issue for everyone to manage together. And as a community, I don't think, yeah, like you're speaking to the misconceptions about like mental illness and the populations we're talking about. And I mean, I can't, like, I just think about what's going on. I don't want to get too far out there,
Sure.
but yeah.
Well, I mean, you said empathy. I think that's a great launch pad for folks to try to put their shoes, your feet in someone else's shoes for a day, and try to understand a little bit about the barriers and the backgrounds that folks have. Behind the doors, everybody has struggles that are going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And, people with mental illness, people who live with mental illness, and who seek care in a psychiatric facility, they might go one time, or they might have to go in a few times, or that might be part of their, like, their overall plan for how not to escalate further. And so, some people live with chronic mental illness, and I think there's a distinction there between a chronic mental illness and someone, who experiences like something really overwhelming and has, needs some psychiatric care. That can happen too. And so, you know, I yeah, I reach for the empathy. And I wonder, like, I feel defensive when I talk about people who experience homelessness, experience mental illness, because I feel that stigma.
Sure. You're passionate about it. You understand what's going on. This position, unfortunately, is going to be wrapping up in a few months here because of budgetary concerns. Obviously, the pandemic is going on. So when your time with the city is up, you'll leave them with some recommendations. I would imagine that spread the gambit of all sorts of things, and included with that is how the city can work with the economic development or with the rest of the business owners around the city for balancing the needs there. What are some other things that you're looking at now and starting to prepare as you move on from here?
Yeah. So my position is ending, and it was not intended to be a 6-month position, but that's what it's ending up being. And, the city is finding itself in a position that a lot of other municipalities and businesses and families are finding themselves in.
It's going to be a couple months and into the years as we get a handle on all this stuff.
Yeah. And so, I'm treating this as like I'm a consultant here, and so I'm going to give my recommendations. And you asked me how it was like getting into the city, like when I first started my job, and they're just like, it's a totally different language that, from like social work sphere to city politics sphere. And so I thought that I was like just starting to like get I was like just starting to figure out the language. But so one of the things that I want to talk about with Jeff is the municipal codes. Those are the kinds of things that like my eyes start to glaze over when we talk about municipal codes, but they're really important
Yeah.
for like having and for reaching for like equitability in our community. And so I don't know what my recommendations will be because that's not my language, but you know, that's what I'm thinking on right now because Jeff just told me they're rewriting the codes.
Sure. This would be a great opportunity to put a good stamp on moving forward and how this looks. Well, I'm sure that the homeless outreach coordinator position across cities in the South Sound and the state will continue to be there, and the time spent in Shelton is good time and experience, to be sure, in a tough, tough situation. There's a lot more that's going on with the city of Shelton. Of course, we continue these interviews weekly here on the Daybreak Show, brought to you by our great friends at our community credit union. But we've been talking this morning with Cappy Shapiro, the homeless outreach coordinator, who is helping us out understand a little bit more about what's going on in downtown Shelton. And there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of issues, and this is only the start of a much larger conversation, especially in Shelton. Cappy, it was good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Too bad not in studio, but you know.
Yeah, well, it's nice to see your face.
It still works. And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing some information on this. And when are you all done here? End of August or something?
I'm the beginning of August.
You'll be out at the end of beginning of August, so
Yeah.
almost done here. Well, thank you so much for the work that you put into the city, and it's a tough position, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll get somewhere down the road on this big issue for the city of Shelton. Cappy Shapiro. Oh, go ahead.
Thank
One more.
I'm sorry. I didn't really get to say anything about the community partners that I work with.
Well,
is it okay if I
go for
something?
it. Tell us who they are. I know there's great ones.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why I applied for this position in the first place, was because I know that there are so many amazing people who are among some of my heroes. You know, Community Lifeline, and Turning Point, and Crossroads, and Crazy Love, and I just have, you know, I have a lot of love for the people who are doing the work, and I have a lot of confidence in the work that they're doing, you know, as we're moving forward.
Those are some great organizations that really put a lot of hard work and effort into the community. Those are good to mention for sure. Cappy, thanks for being on with me.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great one.
Yeah, you too.